someone wants to take that, they can. I mean, it's just in case something breaks, but hopefully it doesn't.
It's heavier than I thought it was.
I'll carry these. Let's go for a little walk.
After you, sir. I don't want to walk in front of the chainsaws.
All good. This woodlot was originally bought by my grandfather in the 1970s. And basically, so now it's been in our family I'm the third generation, and yeah, it's kind of the spot where I get away from it all. Spend time, relax, recharge.
So when your grandfather bought it originally, did he buy it for that purpose of having a woodlot, or was it land he was going to do something with?
No, I think it was meant to be woodland. Like, he used to have a small sawmill actually in Digby years ago, and a hardware store. And I think the idea was this could all kind of link together. But really, he mainly used it. He'd cut some logs in winter, but firewood and just, I think he just took, spent time here. And my dad was the same, and then they used to bring me here when I was a little kid, and it's always just been part of me.
We can't explore places in Nova Scotia and not talk about forestry because it's such a huge part of the province. And you actually might have tree sap in your veins. You do forestry professionally, you do it for fun. You literally are in every aspect of forestry in Nova Scotia. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think, maybe I have sawdust in my veins. I think it started here, probably on this woodlot. But yeah, I'm a professional forester here in Nova Scotia. That's my full-time career. That's what I've been doing for, 16 plus years. My hobbies, I'm here. I'm spending time on the woodlot, and I dabble a little bit in timber sports with, lumberjack competitions, or at least in my in my old life. So yeah, just I love it. I love being in the woods. I love being around timber, and can't get enough of it.
So West 4 is a group of 13 mills. They all are different shareholders, and basically some of them have their own crews that cut on Crown land through West 4, and then some of us work right for West 4 and deliver the wood to the mills. And another aspect of the thin, like with the thinning, we're leaving the better trees. So they're taking out the short-lived species, and we're leaving the longer-lived species like the big pine and the big red spruce. So we're definitely leaving it better than it was before.
I started at a young age with my grandfather, logging weekends and evenings with power saw and tractor. I went through high school doing that sort of part-time. And then I went to college to be a machinist, but sort of my calling was in the woods, so I started out working for others and worked my way into my own business, and been going since.
Awesome. And how many years is that?
I've been in business 8 years on my own. I've been doing forestry professionally for 22 years now. And then, like I say, like 12 to 13, I started working with my grandfather, so we have quite a few years in the woods.
Of the last 4 or 5 years with all this ecological forestry and more thinnings, we're seeing a lot more of the harvesters. So a little smaller machines, rubber tired, so they can kind of sneak through the trails easier, better on fuel. Yeah, so that's a big change. Just going from all that clear-cut mentality to thinnings.
I like the sustainability that we're going with now, that every time I'm done a job site, I can look back and see more trees to cut in the future and more shelter. We're not just stripping the land. Mm-hmm. We're sort of leaving in nice wind-firm trees, habitat for different species and long-lived species that'll stand, that we're not just clearing the land.
I noticed that you have a lot of forestry families that are on your page, and that's a really interesting topic to me. So yep. A lot of the mills that you work are all family operations?
Yes, yeah. Like Freeman's and Turner's, and they're all long-standing family operations. Yeah. Same as the contractors. So a lot of them are, either had fathers or uncles in forestry, and they just continue on. Yeah.
What do you think the future of forestry is with the changing climates and conditions and things like less demand for paper? Where do you see it going in the future?
Oh, I think I see it, turning around in the future. I think they're using a lot more engineered wood products, and more and more of the data shows that if we can clean up some of this dead and dying wood, it's less carbon for the environment.
Yes, so the Western Woodlot Services Cooperative is a nonprofit organization that is basically a woodlot owner-owned cooperative. It's owned and directed by woodlot owners themselves. The service area, the area that we cover, is the western region of Nova Scotia, so it's a relatively large area, the 7 western counties, so that's Kings County, Winterberg County, all the way down to Yarmouth. And again, it's for us to provide private woodlot owners with forest management operational advice and in options, again, depending on their objectives, if it's economic, if it's ecological, if it's social, cultural. Now we're sitting at about 380 members.
Wow.
Representing about 85,000 acres across the West.
That's incredible.
That's a lot of space.
So another thing that we do as a cooperative is we develop what we call forest management plans for our members that choose to have one. And what that is basically we through our assessments, we go and we get the forest inventory that we need. So then again, depending on their objectives, we kind of write out what the recommendations are and priorities for that particular piece of forest for that woodlot. Well, Mom wasn't too sure about me going to forestry school, but Dad thought it was great. He's like, yeah, obviously, that's what you love, that's what you want to do it. And he was really, when I really got involved more in private land, he was really pleased that I was out helping private woodlot owners realize what they have, and then what they could do to improve it, or again, meet their specific objectives. So.
Yeah, and the longevity, like preserving it so it's not just a short-term thing.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the thing, because forest time is a really long time. We're talking 200 to 300 years. And our lifespan is maybe 80 if we're lucky. Yeah. So it's really just a snapshot of the full forest time. So that's the thing, if we always look after the forest, it'll always be there for us, and it'll look after us.
Chainsaws are heavy.
Yeah, they can be. This is going to be a big incorporation into my cabin, but you can see that stump there? Mm-hmm. I cut this tree down, felled it, and hewed this beam with one axe in an afternoon. And I did it as a tribute to my dad and grandfather. Did it on the anniversary of my dad's passing away 20 years ago on the day, so I kind of spent a bit of time out here and just no chainsaws, no noise, no nothing, just me and an axe, and I made this. So it's going to be a header or something, part of the cabin somehow, but it's a little rough looking, but that's sort of by design. You could pretty it up more for sure, but anyway, it's slowly drying out here and getting a bit lighter. You couldn't do that when it was fresh cut.
I bet.
Father worked for the government of Canada. He was a research scientist and a weekend sawmiller. He was a business partner with my grandfather. He'd grown up in the sawmill business, and we spent every weekend, every vacation, every Christmas down here, and Dad was a workaholic. That's all he ever did was work. So he'd have a full-time job, and then he'd be on have a little nap, watch another world, have a little nap, and then he would sell retail lumber at night. He'd come down on the weekend, might go with him, cruise a piece of land if he was looking at some land or some timber that somebody wanted to sell. Then he'd tear a diesel engine apart, and he'd fix the diesel engine apart, get back in the car, go back to his day job, and it was the same thing every week, every year. That's how we lived, and that's how I grew up. So you tend to get sawdust in your blood, and I ended up back here. He retired to the Greenfield area and worked out a full life in retirement, and I've been here. My brother started working with my grandfather, and then I joined my brother, I think it must be 26 years ago now.
What you see over here, you see two things.
One is a pine watering yard, so when temperatures are above 0 or basically sunny out, we have to water our pine logs so that they don't go bad, so they don't get worms, they don't get stain in the edge of the pine, so they stay nice and white.
Yep.
All right, so that's one reason. The second thing, a lot of the black air logs, we're doing a salvage operation from the Tantown wildfires that happened this year. It was almost 200 homes burnt outside of Tantown. So for the homeowners and the landowners, we're harvesting and removing all the trees at no cost to them, and we're bringing them down and we're processing them here at the mill.
Wow.
So even though they've been burnt, they're still usable?
They are. We have some special grading and scanning technology that allows us to pull the burn defects out of the logs and out of the lumber as we process them. But yes, and we're able to sell because they've been burned, we're not allowed to use the chips for paper and pulp and paper processing. So we're actually using them for energy at Brooklyn Energy or in our own steam plant here on site, because we generate our own steam to dry lumber. They sort the logs based on size or sawing pattern. So whether you're going to make a 2x4 or a 2x6 or a 2x8 or a 2x12 or a 1x4 out of it, we sort the logs based on that sawing pattern. Now what that allows us to do is go faster. So the machinery that makes the lumber doesn't have to move as much in between each log.
So set up for a certain size.
And then it runs all I see. So that's what we're doing. We'll go in and we'll see the stud mill. That's what we're doing. So those are studs over there.
Stud mill. No? Okay.
How many people do you guys have working at the plant?
So on the site here today we have about 180.
Wow.
And then in the woods we got about another 350 folks that either harvest trees, truck the logs, or do the silviculture, so tree planting and weeding. And plus you have the guys that lay out the harvest blocks, deal with the public land, all the different landowners. Because last year we did work on over 800 landowners.
Wow.
So most of our forest, right around 80% of it, comes from what we call small private Nova Scotia. So landowners who own a woodlot, and the remainder would come off crown land. So this here, you see the saws, like on that saw line. What happens is the saws turn, and this is what keeps the saws sawing straight, and also the thickness of this is how wide you make your lumber. So if you make 1-inch lumber, you put in different guides. This changes space between the saws. You want to make 2-inch lumber, you want to make 1.5 inches, you want to make 4x4s. These guides are called, is actually what sets the distance between the saws apart, and that determines the width of the lumber, which is why you see all these different guides for different machines on here. Like that's a regular spruce guide.
Oh yeah, spruce. Yeah.
Right there, that's a different guide for a different product for a different saw line to make a different thickness of lumber. So there's the Maritime Lumber Bureau, which ensures that all the mills are members of, and we get audited annually by the ALS, which is the American Lumber Standard, that makes sure that our lumber, the grades we have, they do random samples. They pull lumber that we graded as, say, a number 3. They pull it out, then we go through the bales. We do audit. We have audits from the Maritime Lumber Bureau once a month. So they come here, they spend a couple days, they do a random sample of the lumber in the yard. They go through, grade every piece, and make sure that the lumber that if we're putting grading it as a number 3 or a number 2 or an economy, that the lumber that's in the bundle meets that grade. And then once a year we get certified for a week where the American Lumber Standard comes in and says, what you're telling us in your self-reporting, the basically Maritime Lumber Bureau self-reporting, matches our standard. So when we stamp something and ship it to a customer in the U.S., if we say it's going to be, here's our stamp number, so every piece of lumber that leaves here has a stamp that identifies the mill and the grade, that the person buying it on the other end knows exactly what they're getting.
There's no waste. Everything's a product that has a use somewhere.
Yeah.
So when you have that many customers and different revenue streams, it must be a big deal when, industry winds down in a different area.
Yes, it is, yeah. Like, so that's the thing that's about a forestry value chain. It'd be when you harvest it, not only do you harvest the tree, but you have, in any given job site, you have 7 or 8 different tree species, right? So you got to be able to utilize. You can't just take one tree out of a forest. The one you want, you know what I mean? It doesn't work. That one. You want that one. It doesn't work that way. So you have to have a combination of what's right. You have to be able to sell all the trees and the part of the tree that you harvest, but you also got to be able to do at the same time harvest the trees that make sense ecologically and silviculturally, because you want to improve your forest and your forest health long term, right?
Speaking of the chips, I'm really curious. So we've had some bigger pulp mills close down over the last few years. One down here, and then one up in Pictou. How has that affected your business and the product? Like, where's that going?
So we have a lot of different places we send our chips. So our biggest customer today is Brooklyn Energy. Generates green power for the grid here in Nova Scotia. It's located in Liverpool. All right. We send our next biggest customer after that is Port Hawkesbury Paper in Port Hawkesbury. All right. So we send about 20% of our chips there. We supply 2 local hospitals with chips to burn, to use here and replace oil, which not only is better for the environment, but every nickel stays here, and it saves, like the hospital in Bridgewater and the hospital in Kentville, 2 biggest regional hospitals here, it saves their fuel bill by last year almost $1 million.
Wow.
Well, I know some people who work here, and I knew their great-grandfather, and I knew their grandfather, and I knew their father. And they're good country people, they're good workers, they understand the business well, and we're very, very fortunate to have them working for us. We've just got a tremendous workforce here.
There we go. Timber!
Thank you. The last little touch, I just see, okay, I'm gonna take roughly 1 inch off of that. So basically, I just fire the old girl up. Few war wounds as you get in the woods, but I think that's necessary.
Comes with the territory.
Exactly. No big deal. So I'm gonna fire this saw up and then basically take the first slab off of it. You can see how it works. Sound good?
Would you cut them to like certain sizes, or is it like just no? It is what it is kind of thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I try to work with the log that I have. I'm not really going to be cutting all kinds of lumber, like 2x6s and 2x4s. It's really just not efficient to do that with this sort of setup. But for cutting beams and posts and like that sort of stuff, like dimensional stuff, but like meaty stuff, it's wonderful because I can do like a 6x6 or an 8x8 or something along those lines. And the way I want to frame the cabin is basically post and beam, so I can make most of the posts and beams myself, and then maybe get some rough sawn lumber from a local sawmill. This particular lot we're standing on, it's roughly 100 acres. It's mine, my lot. I look after it. But I do have another parcel that's adjacent to this, and my brother-in-law and I own that together. And my niece and nephew are, they're growing up, and they're going to be introduced to the woodland the same way as I was. So, I mean, it's meant to be this place that the entire family can come to, they can enjoy, they can be part of. And hopefully one day, once I finally get this infamous cabin that I've been working on forever done, people can come and stay and feel welcome to. Forest management, really, it's something that, we use things like sophisticated computer models to generate the growth of the forest over centuries. We do detailed forest inventory to understand what the forests of Nova Scotia look like. We have research models. We have all of these different things, looking at natural disturbance patterns. I mean, all of these things that go into figuring out how the forest would naturally develop, and then trying to make decisions that align with that, so that you're not fighting nature, you're working with it.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. I'm Wade Turner.
Nice to meet you. I'm Tyson.
Nice to meet you.
Alicia.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks for having us at your operation. I got to tell you, when they said a small family mill on the website, this doesn't look small to me.
Quite an operation.
Yeah, it's small for Nova Scotia today.
Wade, how long have you been operating in this area?
The sawmill's been here since the late 60s, and I've been here a long time as well, so.
And it began with your father?
Yeah, my father and my uncle started the business together, and then my father ended up taking the business back in 1987. They split up a little bit, and then my sister and I took the business over in 2012.
Do you find it challenging being a smaller family mill up against some of the larger mass producers?
It is challenging. You have to kind of go a different route. We tend to do more retail sales. We do more direct to the consumer, and we do a lot of specialty products here. So we do differentiate ourselves. Trying to compete at the same products they do is very difficult. There's definitely more pressures with insects and things like that. There's a hemlock woolly adelgid that's in the eastern hemlock now, which is quite really decimating the population, so that's not good. But as far as what we get for size logs, I think the biggest factor is more human, because there's a lot more move towards ecological forestry, which is more thinnings, more smaller groups, so the wood tends to be a little smaller because we're not cutting the old growth and clear cutting that it used to be.
What strikes me is how sustainable it is with processing it and milling it here, and then keeping it local for projects that are built here. It's just very closed loop.
Yeah, it is, and everything does get used. We sell sawdust for animal bedding, and we sell shavings as well. Actually, bark goes on the yellow truck, and we take it back and put it on a pile, and the sawdust falls back in behind the truck, and we sell that for animal bedding.
Oh, yeah.
The bark actually goes back to the pile, and we usually, that's spruce, so that usually goes to Brooklyn Energy for power generation. The hemlock bark, we usually get a tub grinder in and grind it up and sell it for landscape mulch.
Interesting. I can't believe how many different products there are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot. It's all years ago. The residuals were never as big a part of the revenue stream as they are now. But now everything is necessary.
How do you know what you're like? The machine is just lobbing off hunks of it, and then all of a sudden you have boards of all kinds of different sizes. How does it know what to cut to get what size?
The guy actually running the carriage, sitting in the booth,
Yeah.
makes those decisions. Actually,
Just like
he does. He's been doing
I'm getting
it.
a 4x8 off this. We got 2x7s on that. Is that even a number?
No, but
No,
okay.
he's really good. Actually, we are making some 2x7s for a special order, but not normally,
interesting.
but we are at the moment. But he's actually really good. He's been there for a long time. That's what he's done his whole life pretty
So
well.
he's literally just eyeballing it going, yep, okay, I'm cutting it to this
Yeah.
spec.
Thank you so much for the tour. It's wonderful to meet you.
And nice to meet you as well.
Appreciate
This was, I don't want to say surprisingly fascinating, because learning how anything actually works is fascinating, but this was awesome.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
It really did. We're definitely going to look at the lumber we're buying differently now.
What I've shown you here today, I mean, this is small scale forestry, small scale woodlot management, but I mean, there's a whole host of scales. There's organizations out there that can help woodlot owners, like the Western Woodlot Services Cooperative. There's, you can scale up to folks like Jay Turner's and the sawmilling sector, and even bigger scale with, Freeman's, one of the longest running family sawmills in North America, I think. You have organizations that acts as stewards of the land on public lands. Medway Community Forest comes to mind, and Westfor, and all of these organizations, the Mi'kmaq Forestry Initiative. These are organizations that all take land stewardship seriously. They think about the forest in terms of decades and centuries, and that's really what it's about, is understanding that, again, we're here for a short period of time. We have a responsibility to look after the land, to look after ecosystems, to look after biodiversity, and think about things other than just our own kind of personal gain. There's a lot of benefits to having a healthy and wonderful place to come to, like a woodlot like this. I think of myself, even though I'm a forester and like that's my background and everything, I really see this land, like, in my role as just this temporary steward. Like, it's a short-term thing. I'm only here so long. The forest has been here long before me. It'll be here long after me. So the period of time that I have some influence over it, I just want to be really conscious and thoughtful about it. And little things like this that are really meaningful, I think are well worth the time and effort, yeah. Sounds great, Alicia, but when you're talking about an outhouse and not indoor plumbing, there are issues that come along with having one right next to where you live and sleep.
Next time she complains about the size of the trailer, I'll remind her that she likes things to be one step away from where she's currently standing. All your problems are solved.
Our toilet is literally right next to the bed.
Oh, and that's a good
There's
thing.
a wall there.
Well, if you're going to move into a trailer with someone, you better be real comfortable, because you will be
You
shortly
get
after
comfortable
that.
real quick, yeah.
Yeah.